Watch your aura pass me by, losing balance. What if we run out of time and second chances? Empty-handed. You like the fast life, you like to drive and get down and dirty, act like the bad guy. You want some love, be like when you feel like calling at midnight. You got the best of me, you got me losing sleep. I've been hopeful, baby, I was hoping maybe that you crossed my path.
I'm Dr. Sharon Lamm-Hartman, co-host of the Keynote Live TV show here on Exposure Network TV. This is a groundbreaking show that's bringing critical tips, tools, knowledge that each speaker needs to TV. I'm honored to be a co-host of this show where I'm bringing my 20 plus years of experience being a global corporate and keynote speaker, along with my doctorate from Columbia University in leadership and organization development. I've grown a successful 7+ figure speaking and training business, Inside Out Learning, and I want to show you how you can do it too. And at the heart of this success is my Wall Street Journal USA Today Axiom Gold Medal award-winning book, The Authenticity Code, The Art and Science of Success and Why You Can't Fake It to Make It. The Authenticity Code helps new, emerging, and experienced speakers crack the code to being their authentic selves on stage and taking their career to new heights. I'm so grateful and happy that you're joining us tonight. And please make sure to share this show with your social network. If you want to take your speaking to the next level of greatness, join us each week on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Exposure Network TV.
Hey guys, this is Gene Baker, Leadership Behavioral Analyst and your co-host for Keynote Live, brought to you by Keynote Magazine, your place for all things related to keynote events and keynote speaking. So I am so happy to be co-hosting Keynote Live because if you're like a lot of speakers out there, you're wondering, how do I make it in an increasingly crowded sea of keynote speakers? And Keynote Live, along with Keynote Magazine, Keynote Stage, and Exposure Plus TV are at the cutting edge of bringing media, technology, and expertise together in one place that's going to be completely transformative in how we move, breathe in the keynote speaking space. So give yourselves a round of applause for being here, same time, same place, every Sunday night, where we will be talking all things speaking and entrepreneurship. So I'm going to turn this over to my co-host, Dr. Karim Ellis.
My name is Dr. Karim Ellis. I am the #1 breakthrough strategist, best-selling author of GPS, My Success, a veteran in the speaking industry with 20 years of speaking experience from corporate stages all across the world, national and international. It's a pleasure, a privilege, and most importantly, an honor to be one of the co-hosts with you tonight on the Keynote Live.
In a far, far away land, a feast was being planned.
Crab thermidor crumpets.
Delicious.
Cider glazed gammon.
Yes, yes, I love all that. You, what do you have?
For dessert?
I've never really liked Christmas pudding. Bring me something different. Or else. Or else. Or else. Or else.
That's my biscuit!
Treaty time!
It's a Christmas pudding! Uh-oh!
Is that caramelised biscuit?
Yes, Countess.
That's a bit of me.
Well done, Babs!
And that's why you can taste the difference. Sainsbury's.
Well, how are you all?
I can't complain. They got me on remote location, so I can't complain. I'm down here in very cold Atlanta, Georgia, for the evening.
Oh, wonderful. It's cold in Atlanta, huh?
It is cold. I bounced between two cities. I went from Houston, Texas, speaking out there, to Atlanta, Georgia, and both were a little bit chilly this evening. So yeah, absolutely, we got a little bit of cold weather, but it ain't nothing the good doc can't hang with.
Yeah. I think we're gonna have to start a segment of, where in the world is Dr. Karim?
Listen, I'm everywhere they want to pay me at this point in time. Wherever they want to pay me, a brother will show up.
Absolutely.
I
don't think we want to be in Michigan right now. It's like it's going to get down to 18 degrees tonight. So
I'll pass on that one.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Hey, I don't want to say what it was in Arizona today, but I will. It was 70 and sunny.
Yeah.
I surely thought you was gonna say 99.
No.
I'll think
this is the time to be here. This is definitely the time to be here. Got a great hike in today. It was fabulous. But, this week I was so grateful because in this time of gratitude for Thanksgiving, and I was just so grateful this week that I had a team out doing an authenticity code 5-day program at a Fortune 50 company. They got 5 stars. So nice. I'm grateful for my IOL team and also for my family. Somehow I got voted to cook this year, and I don't really cook. So we're kind of doing it potluck style, but have family coming in. So it's fun. How about you, Gene?
Well, this year, Thanksgiving falls on my birthday, or my birthday falls on Thanksgiving. So I get my favorite meal of the year. And it doesn't really get better for me. I mean, I love turkey. I love dressing. I love cranberry sauce. I love the greens. I love everything really associated with the Thanksgiving meal, including pumpkin pie and sweet potato pie. So there, I said it.
Exactly. I love it. Well, happy birthday, Gene.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just confused on you threw all the sweets out there, man. I thought you were gonna give me more than those 2 sweets. I thought you were gonna give me something else.
Well, I mean, of course, it's apple pie. I mean, between those 3, you really have it, man. Apple pie, pumpkin pie, sweet potato pie. Come on.
I got you. I can't be mad at that. I can't be mad at that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about tonight's show. I really am. I mean, we have so many incredible topics. We're going to talk about grit and perseverance in the speaking industry and how much that is needed to stick with it and don't give up. And we're going to talk about mental health because while we can say, the holidays is such a joyful time, it's not always a joyful time for many people who might be estranged from their families. And we know that with COVID, mental health challenges are way up. And so we need to provide some help out there. And I'm so excited about today's guest who speaks on suicide prevention. And we're going to be giving tips on what to do if you're afraid someone might be contemplating suicide and how to help people through that. And this guest has 8 TEDx talks. I mean, so I'm so excited. How about you all?
I know, right?
Listen, y'all took me back to Sesame Street. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 TED Talks. I've done a TED Talk. I want to pick his brain, though. I definitely want to pick this guy's brain on some TEDx stuff. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. He coaches others, too, how to do it.
He's a tremendous person. We'll do a proper introduction for him, but I am excited because just in the life that he's lived and the passion that he speaks from experience and he's helped so many people. When we talk about being passionate about speaking, I mean, this certainly embodies that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anytime you do 8 TEDx talks, you definitely passionate.
Exactly. And we're going to find out. Yeah, well, we need to find out what helped him become passionate in this subject and what keeps him going. because he travels around the world and is actually on a cruise ship right now, speaking and doing comedy. So we're so excited, and you do not want to miss this. You do not want to miss this show. So we're going to be right back after these messages.
Stay right there.
Attention, calling all speakers. Keynote is a stage changing the landscape of public speaking. The unscripted reality show is now casting. Scan the QR code at the end of the video to apply.
The #1 television show for inspired and experienced speakers is changing the landscape of public speaking. The unscripted reality TV series will bring together speakers from around the world. We are looking for impactful speakers who are ready to transform the world one person at a time. Keynote Live unscripted show will be filming this spring in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The television series will be streaming on Exposure Plus TV, accessible to 440 million households in 128 countries. Available on all smart television and mobile devices.
It's time to show off your skills. Be sure to tune in to Sunday Keynote Live promotional streaming series at 7:00 p.m. Central Standard Time and 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to learn more about Keynote, unscripted reality TV series, and the coaches.
Key vets. Your family and friends may be even pressuring you to give up on your dream. Maybe you're even feeling like, you know what, I failed one too many times. You've hit your dead end. Well, I'm here to tell you, you are just not alone. In fact, based on who we know our audience to be, the highly driven, highly capable, high-impact speakers and entrepreneurs, the chances are that the vast majority of us have tried things multiple times before we became successful. That's right. In other words, we have failed multiple times before we became successful. Now, some of you may not be used to failing at anything. You've been successful all of your life. You got good grades. You excelled in sports. You went to a great college on a big-time scholarship. You got a great job and all of that. You and those around you have now set the expectation that failure is not an option. So when you are now not experiencing a level of success that you've come to expect, you internalize failure as a mark against your character. You don't want to be seen as a loser, as a failure. So what then happens is unconsciously you create situations and your environment that best supports you being successful. Unfortunately, that means low risk, low growth, lack of learning, stall out. You reach a ceiling that you will never grow beyond. So think of the flea. Yes, the flea. You see, the flea can jump up to 150 times their length. That's over 2 feet. That's an incredible feat. But the thing is, that's all they know. They were born with that capability and mindset. Well, if you put that flea, and maybe even its relatives, in a jar, and you put the lid on, guess what happens? The fleas will experience failure at first, but then they'll begin to adjust how high they jump. They'll adjust and they'll adjust. Eventually, the fleas will jump just so they don't reach that ceiling. So now that ceiling may be only 2 inches, and that flea will just jump 2 inches. Okay, so they will be successful 100% of the time, every time that they jump. Would you call that a successful flea? Probably not. Most people nowadays don't put themselves in a position to fail, which then exaggerates the times that they do fail to catastrophic levels. They just can't handle it. Most people are like the flea in the jar. So don't be that flea in the jar. Failure is not failure. Failure is simply a shot attempt. You will absolutely not be successful with no shot attempts. Each attempt is an opportunity to learn, to grow, to adjust, to develop. In fact, each attempt is also a window into your character. A character that's built on grit, a character that's built on determination, a character that is built on strong will, a character that searches out growth opportunities and takes risk. Think of it this way as a speaker. Do you think that more people would want to listen to you as a speaker talk about how successful you are and all the great things you have in your life? Or do you think that they would want to learn from the failures that you had along the way that's made you successful today? Right? So stay in the game, stay learning, and own your dream. Don't let anyone else own your dream. You got this. Stay plugged in. Search out others that you can learn from. Continuously challenge yourself in uncomfortable situations. be happy in uncomfortable situations. You will be successful. You will be a bad somebody because you already are a bad somebody. So thanks for tuning in weekly to Keynote Live. We appreciate you and encourage you to become a featured speaker on our show and even to audition for the live unscripted Keynote reality show. Talk to you soon.
Wow, that was an awesome video you made, Gene, in terms of really talking about the failures that we all have to go through in order to persevere, learn, and how we can learn from failure more than success often, right? That's part of this journey of being a speaker and being a successful business owner, because so many speakers are speakers, coaches, trainers. We don't only speak, right? And it's so important to realize that we have, we can be out there. We can do failing. We can then learn from those failures, and we can have that perseverance to succeed. So I think it's such an incredible message.
I'll leap in real quick because I think that Dr. Sharon is spot on with it. What I love about the message and the concept is you'll fail your way to success. And most people I come across, they're afraid of looking foolish in front of the rest of the world. There's no way you can make it to your finish line without looking foolish, at least a minimum of one time in the journey. So if you want to be successful, go ahead and make your mistake, look like the fool, learn from the lesson, and perseverance wraps that in a nice, tidy package and a nice, tidy bow. Stick with it. Have a level of stick-to-itiveness that won't rub off easily. I love it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And that's just it. It's that stick-to-itiveness. It's understanding that you will fail, and it's just a lesson. You learn from it.
Yeah.
It's the expectation to fail, and so often I think in this generation we've all been kind of raised to just to be successful, and it's so detrimental to us. And this is why you see a lot of people that can't accept and they can't deal with failure. They can't deal with a significant challenge. It's just too much, and it really impacts all of us, but especially those that are high achievers.
Nice.
Because if you run into a wall and you've been a high achiever, you've achieved so many things in life, and you want to share your story on stages across the world, and it's just not happening for you. Then all of a sudden you may be a great speaker, but you haven't learned how to deal with failure, so you never get to be great. And that's really the message there is don't limit yourself through that process. Go through the process. Learn from it. It's okay. We've all done it. We've been there. And we should be there, and we should continue to fail. Fail forward is the word.
I recently actually heard that a success criteria of a billionaire was learning how to fail.
Yeah.
That so many of them, their parents actually taught them, don't be perfect. It's okay to fail. Don't be scared to go out and try something new. And you might succeed and you might not. And that's what gave them that grit to continue to build billion-dollar businesses.
I gotta agree with it. In the back of my mind, I know we looking at Thanksgiving coming up. and all I got is a Thanksgiving key drop. That's all I got. I got a Thanksgiving turkey key drop on that one. I love it. I don't know anybody who's been super successful that's given up at the first sign of failure. You know, yeah. I love the concept of the captain goes down with the ship. And the only reason the captain goes down with the ship is not because the captain's stupid necessarily. The captain believes in the dream so enticingly that the captain is willing to go down with the ship itself. So I love that, Gene. That's powerful.
Wait. Can you do that?
That's my Thanksgiving Day key drop. You got to hear the little. You got to hear that going on and picture the keys jiggling at the same time.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
You got your rental keys this week.
All right. So, you know what? The next person that we bring in, our guest, is a phenomenal guest. I'm so excited to bring him on. Our guest is known as the mental health comedian. He has delivered multiple TEDx. I believe the number we mentioned was 8. He is, in fact, a TEDx coach, a public speaker, and a comedian that has been speaking about depression and suicide for over 21 years. One interesting aspect of his experience is that back when he was really learning his profession, he literally set the record for most consecutive nights in a row on the road as he performed and opened for others. He was on the road. Listen to this. He was on the road for 2,629 nights in a row. I had to do the math on that. That's literally over 7 years straight on the road. Talk about perseverance. I want to know about that. Now, that is perseverance and grit. So he's also an official spokesperson for the National Alliance for Mental Health. He is an instructor for Stand Up for Mental Health, and he volunteers for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Talk about authenticity. This guy is totally involved in what he speaks about.
Right.
As a speaker, he is passionate about his topic. He speaks from a place of authenticity, born from his personal and family history, and is known for delivering ahas as well as a few ha-has, winning over, educating, informing, and entertaining audiences around the world. Please help me welcome our special guest to the stage. That is Frank King.
Yay.
Hey guys, there he is, the man of the hour.
The man of the hour. Thanks so much for joining us, Frank.
Sharon, Dr. Sharon, anywhere you are, I'm happy to be. Here's how much I trust Dr. Sharon. If she says it's Easter, baby, I'm dying eggs. I don't care what month.
I love you too, Frank. And it's great to have you with us. And I think our audience is filled with speakers who are aspiring, emerging, or really great already and want to go to their next level of greatness. And we would love to hear from you. I mean, 8 TEDx's. I think that Bill Gates is the only other person who has had 8 TEDx's. So you are up there with Bill Gates, my friend. And we want to know your secret. What's your secret to getting these TEDx's?
Well, I learned it from a woman named Jane Atkinson. Do you guys know Jane Atkinson, the wealthy speaker, launcher lady? I was on her podcast recently. She's big on picking a lane. And I have a motivational speech, networking speech. I've got a cardiac comedy speech because I had a lot of cardiac work done. And January 1st, 2018, I decided I would finally take Jane Atkinson and pick a lane. So I decided from that point forward, I'm simply a suicide prevention speaker. I mean, if you call me and say, Frank, would you do your cardiac comedy? If you're going to pay me, I'll be happy to, but I don't market it. And then took the second step, which was select a group of ideal clients, people who need what I have to say. I tell speakers that I work with, look, I don't care how good your keynote is, if you're not solving a problem or hitting a pain point, they're not going to book you because, they don't need you. So I selected top 6 occupations at risk for suicide. And for example, construction. 1,000 people die by accident in construction every year. 5,000 die by suicide. You're 5 times more likely to jump off the building than fall off. So as a speaker, when they contact me, I don't have to sell them on the idea of suicide prevention. They get it. trying to decide which suicide prevention speaker
they want.
Choose. I tell my friends, look, long-term goal, the long game is you no longer want to be a commodity in the speaking business.
Sure.
When somebody comes looking for a speaker on your topic, you want them to come looking for you. That's the long-term, long-game goal is, no longer a commodity, just another speaker on this topic.
Gotcha. So let me leap in here, man, because there's so many things I want to ask you. And I'm afraid we're going to run out of time. There's so many things I want to ask you. I'm a strong believer that what you're designed to do, you've been doing it all your life. Like when I run into speakers, most of the time they had issues with getting in trouble for talking a lot. The thing that's dynamic about you also a comedian. So did you grow up as that kid that was funny? And if so, what was the radical decision to add comedy into your speaking business?
Well, actually, I started as a comedian. Day after Christmas, 1985.
Okay.
December, I said to my girlfriend, now my wife, 35 years, I'm going on the road to do stand-up comedy. You want to come along? Figuring she'd go, oh, heck. No.
Yeah.
And yes. So we were on the road for 7 years and change, doing stand-up comedy, opened up, worked with Dennis Miller, Seinfeld, Adam Sandler, Kevin James, Rosie Ellen, Steve Harvey back in the day. And then comedy boom busted, but I was a clean comic. So I jumped to corporate comedy.
Yeah.
And I realized very quickly, somebody said, what's the difference between a corporate comic and a club comic? Well, $5,000 a day plus travel. Yeah. Exactly. And yeah. Well, what happened was after the last recession, speaking dropped off about 80% during the last recession, 2008, 2009. Meeting planner said to me, Frank, we love you. We can't pay you $5,000 anymore just to be funny. You've got to teach our audience something. And I'd always wanted to make a living and a difference, but had no idea how. So a friend of mine named Judy Carter, who wrote the Comedy Bible, she said, read my book, Frank. It's called The Message of You, Turning Your Life into a Money-Making Speaking Career.
Sure.
So I went into the book, nothing. She walks you through, step by step, finding what she calls your heart story. Halfway through, I thought, son of a gun, I do have something to teach. Given my family history, depression and suicide, my grandmother died by suicide, mother found her, my great aunt died by suicide, my mother and I found her. I was 4 years old. I screamed for days. And in 2010, after filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy, I learned what the barrel of my gun tasted like, literally. So I had that lived experience. I thought, if I get some suicide prevention training, I can keynote on this. Second hurdle, how do I convince a meeting planner that Comedy Boy can do something serious? My wife said, do a TEDx. I famously said, what's a TEDx? She said, I happened to get an invitation that week to apply to one in Vancouver, BC. I got it. And then I got two more based on that. I got invited to two more events because I had two more mental health topic TEDx's. So all of a sudden, the Planner Speakers Bureau realized, Frank, something serious with some comic relief. I got a call this week from the Montana Hospital Association. They contacted the Speakers Bureau they've been using for years. They said, we want a suicide speaker, want one that's funny, and we know there's one out there. His name's Frank King. Call him and get him.
Yeah.
So they weren't looking for just any suicide prevention speaker. They wanted me, which is, that makes a speaker very happy when they come looking for.
Of course, when they knock on your door.
Yes. And so I've been able to differentiate myself between picking a lane and selecting half a dozen ideal clients. It makes the SEO so much easier.
So much easier.
All my client groups, if you type in suicide prevention speaker agriculture, for example, you'll find me with at least one listing on Google page 1. And I'm on Google page 1 in all 6 of those. And in Google and suicide prevention speaking dental, I have the first 4 organic listings 1.
Sure.
That's because I picked a lane and I selected ideal clients. Now, you know what the speakers are thinking right now? Well, what? I don't want to give up those other lanes. I can make money in those other lanes. Well, it's a short-term, long-term game. Just, grit your teeth, pick a lane. And that's the great thing about TEDx is they force you to pick one idea, one topic. And stick with it. Yeah, that's the beauty of TEDx.
Okay. So Frank, you've given us so much so quickly. Listen, we used to people getting on here and they pull out a garden hose. You fix your lips and doing it. You just pulled out a fire hose, bro. You took our head off with so much in such a compact time frame. And I'm looking at Gene, and Gene is just giving me this look like he's ready to leap in there. So Gene, go ahead and ask him the question. I know you got something just dying to ask him right now.
Tag me in. Yeah. So you often you speak to about, you got to have a tribe and you got to have a vacuum. And that's what I kind of just heard you say is you got to have a need. That's that vacuum. And you got to know who your audience is. So great learning. That's a key drop moment right there. But also one of the things that people really struggle with is this authenticity and being emotional on stage. And you're speaking about really heavy topics, but you're adding a kind of that dark humor to it. But I'm wondering if you can speak to our audience about how you kind of manage those emotions, because sometimes it takes you back. You mentioned, finding your aunt, and I don't know if you're comfortable telling that whole story, but I mean, that's traumatic. How do you take that, go back to that time, but stay in the moment and connect with your audience?
Well, let's have a trigger warning here. The story I'm about to tell you about finding my aunts who died by suicide is gruesome. So, we're going to raise strong emotions. So don't feel bad if you need to mute it at some point during this story.
Okay.
My mother couldn't reach my aunt on the phone, and having had her mother die of suicide 9 years before, and knowing her aunt was winding down mentally, got panicked and loaded me into the car at 4 years old. We drove over to my great aunt's apartment. We let ourselves in, and nothing was out of place until we got to the kitchen. And everything that should have been in the old lock-type refrigerator was on the counter: milk, butter, eggs, cheese. And my mother didn't realize that my great aunt had crawled into the refrigerator, pulled the door to, and it was a lock type. So once you got in, there's no getting out. Jeez. However, my great aunt at some point apparently changed her mind and tried to claw her way out of the refrigerator. So my mother, not recognizing what was happening, reaches over to open the refrigerator door. I'm holding onto her skirt tail. She swings the door open, and my great aunt falls out of the refrigerator and pins me to the floor. We are face to face, and her face is frozen in that last moment of agony. And I screamed for days. And if you're already hardwired for depression, as I am in my family, and you're that close to an actual suicide, I don't think you can get any closer, then the chances of you seriously considering taking your life at some point in your life goes up. And then after that bankruptcy, she had $1 million life insurance policy. Most people who are suicidal suffer from something called burdensomeness. We believed the world would be better off without us. And I knew my wife would be better off financially. I could restore her financially. She'd be brokenhearted, but no longer broke. So I thought, well, I can fix this. And the reason I put a gun in my mouth, I went to the barn and put it in my mouth and pulled the hammer back to practice to see if I could actually do it. It was a practice run. And spoiler alert, I didn't pull the trigger, which most audiences, they're just nervous laugh. Right. And then I say, a friend of mine heard me speak and say that the other day, and he came up afterwards. He goes, "Hey, man, how come you didn't pull the trigger?" I go, "Hey, man, could you try to sound slightly less disappointed?" But when I speak, I take people back to those moments. I get emotional. You can hear the catch in my voice. You can see me tearing up. Mm-hmm. And to see a man on stage getting emotional, and I tell speakers, take your audience on an emotional journey. Mm-hmm. I like to take them from laughter to tears to laughter to tears. I've got a story that I close with about why I killed myself. My mother had difficulty getting pregnant, and she got pregnant, carried it 9 months, and shortly after birth, it passed away. A year later, she got pregnant again, carried it to term 9 months, and shortly after birth, it passed away. And so now somewhere she found the strength to try a third time, and I was born, and a fourth time, my sister was born. And I feel like that my mother worked so hard and was so brave to bring me here that I have to be at least as brave and work as hard to stay until my appointed time. Wow. And when I get to the end of that story, certainly the women in the audience, especially ones who've had children, are in tears. And I said, look, let me leave you on a high note. I crawled into Uber one day after 2-3 hour suicide prevention CEs. I'm exhausted. And as somebody with mental illness, every now and then when somebody asks me how I'm doing, I tell them. So the nice young Uber kid, looks, our eyes lock in the mirror. He goes, "Hey, man, how you doing?" I go, "I'm depressed and suicidal. How about you?" He's freezing. Then he says, what am I supposed to say to that? I said, do you really want to know? He goes, yeah. I said, you're supposed to ask me, do I have a plan?
You have a
So he
plan.
thinks about it, and our eyes are still locked in the mirror. He goes, do you have a plan? And then it hits him, and he turns into the seat, and he goes, does it involve Uber?
Oh, no.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah, so that's, after telling the story about my mom, and I've got him in tears or close to tears, let me close with, on a high note. So you can take them on an emotional roller coaster. It's the old NSA thing, National Speakers Association. They may not remember what you said, but they will remember how they felt.
You're not only taking the audience on a roller coaster, down, up, but you're also kind of managing your own emotions.
Exactly.
Down, up.
Yes,
Yeah.
and somebody asked me, does it trigger you to tell your story like that? And I said, no, you misunderstand. Telling that story gives the audience permission to give voice to their feelings and experiences surrounding depression and thoughts of suicide. People have told me things after a presentation. I had a young man come up to me at a construction site where I was speaking, a black gentleman, mid-20s, and he's crying so hard he can't speak. So I wait, and when he gathers himself, I said, what's up? And he said he'd lost 3 people very close to him in the last year to violence, including his daughter who died in his arms. Now, he's never told anybody this. He said, and I haven't slept in 2 days, and I work on the 5th floor of this building, and I think of it every day.
Wow.
So I waved the HR gentleman over, and I said, you need to take this gentleman by the hand and get him to a mental health facility for evaluation, perhaps medication. That was in March. So last month, I called the meeting planner back, holding my breath. I said, how is the young man that I spoke to? And she said, Frank, he got evaluated, he got medicated, he's back on the job. My goal in life is to save a life a day. And that was mine for that day.
Wow. That's amazing, Frank. And I just commend you so much in doing your passion in the world and helping so many people. And, the holidays are a difficult time for many, and suicide rates go up during that time. There's higher suicide after COVID. And we would love to know from you, what are some tips if we're approached by someone, that and anyone in our audience is approached by someone who might be contemplating suicide? How do we best support them?
Well, let me give you the good news, because I do this with my audience after I tell them that one person dies by suicide every 9 minutes in the U.S. and 40 seconds worldwide. Here's the good news. 8 out of 10 people who are suicidal are ambivalent. 9 out of 10 give hints in the week leading up to an attempt, which means you can make a difference. You can save a life, and you can do it by doing something as simple as what we're doing right here, and that is starting a conversation if you know how. And before we leave today, you will know how. So what I'm doing is I'm doing that Donald Miller thing. I'm empowering the audience. I'm making them the hero of the piece. I'm going to teach you how to save a life. So depression, eat too much or can't eat. They sleep too much or they can't seem to sleep. They are having difficulty getting out of bed in the morning, so maybe late for work, late for school, but then in the afternoon tend to rally, almost like a different person. Here's one you can observe visually. They let their personal hygiene go. Normally they're pretty well put together, but this day their hair's kind of dirty, clothes aren't quite so clean. It may be because they're having trouble getting out of bed in the morning to run a load of wash, take a shower. So the question comes up, what do you say? Well, let's start what you don't say. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Turn that frown upside down. Have you tried fish oil? Here's what you do say. I'm here for you and I mean it. I know you're not lazy or crazy or self-absorbed. I know that mental illness, depression is a mental illness, but with time and treatment, things will get better. And I will take the time and I'll help you get the treatment. Now, Dr. Sharon, here's the difficult part. You have to ask them in no uncertain terms, are you having thoughts of suicide? If you can't ask that question, find somebody who can. And if you can't find anybody, call me and I'll ask them. And because there's an old urban legend that you should never mention the word suicide in front of somebody because it might push them over the edge. And the reverse is actually true. If you ask them, are they having thoughts of suicide, the chances of them dying by suicide go down. But let's say they don't admit they're having thoughts of suicide, but you suspect, your intuition tells you. How would you know? Well, they talk about death and dying frequently. Death and dying appears as a theme in their music, their artwork, their writing. Catch them Googling death and dying. Gathering the means, buying a weapon, or stockpiling medication. Here's one. They're getting their affairs in order, especially if they're giving away prized possessions, because they want to make sure the possessions go to the people that they want to go to when they're gone. And here's a counterintuitive one that's very dangerous. They've been depressed forever, and now they're happy, but you can't figure out why. What reason do they have to be happy? Well, they may be happy because they've chosen time, place, and method, and they know the pain is coming to them. A lot of people don't understand that most suicides are not about killing you. I didn't want to kill myself. I just wanted to end the pain. Now, let's say they do admit they're suicidal, and you guys have already covered this. What do you say if they say they're having thoughts of suicide? Do you have a plan? And if they have a plan, what is it? And if it's detailed, time, place, and method, you need to do your best to get them either A, to a mental health facility, or B, have them dial 988, the new 3-digit suicide prevention lifeline number. Last step. Let's say they've got a plan, but it's not particularly detailed. What do you do? Well, what I would do is say, look, are you going to kill yourself? And if they say no, say this. Okay, tell me why not. Make them give voice to whatever it is that's keeping them here, because something is, otherwise you wouldn't be having this conversation. Family, friends, religion, kids, pets, whatever it is. And then you try to leverage that to keep them alive, whatever it is they say they're, My story, one of the reasons I don't kill myself is because of, what my mother went through to bring me here. And also another reason I don't kill myself is that 20-year-old black gentleman on the construction site. Because I feel sort of like George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life in that situation. I've been shown what people's lives might be like if I had not been there on that day at that construction site to help that young man. So if I kill myself, I feel like I would take people like him with me who never had a chance to hear me speak and then share their story.
Okay. So I want to pivot real quick because you gave so much content, but I know that a lot of the folks that watch this, they're also wanting to know how to take their speaking brand to the next level. And we started out with you've done 8 TEDx, 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is there a secret to landing a TEDx? Because we got thousands of people all across the world, and I know you coach this, so that go out and they don't get the shot. Is there a secret that you can say off the bat that they should look forward to that's going to help them land a TEDx or TEDx talk? Yeah.
Number one, one idea. Number 2, a very detailed and concise, presentation of that one idea. They don't want a thesis. They want an idea, like a 3-sentence summary. I think the linchpin is creativity, because if a TEDx event gets 200 applications, whatever you put on that app, better. So I work really hard on title and subtitle. I've had 2 TEDx talks where I didn't have to audition. They love the title and subtitle so much.
Put them in.
They said, you're on. My favorite is my 5th one. It's a little out there, but it was called Mental Health and the Orgasm, Treat Your Depression Single-Handedly. And they called me and said, you're on, man. You don't have to audition. So when I work with my clients, I've got a client in recovery, and he wrote a book called Sober Letters to My Drunken Self. Okay, we all know what those words mean, but we really don't know what he's getting at. So that forces him to read the subtitle. And I can't remember what the subtitle was, but he got the gig. So I had a woman who had cancer, breast cancer, very aggressive, double mastectomy. Her title was How Cancer Saved My Life. Okay, if I'm looking at applications, I come across a sentence, how cancer, so I'm reading on. And the subtitle was, and the rest of my fears nearly killed me. Okay, now I'm going to read the 3-sentence description at this point and then why she's the person. So the farther you can get them to read down the application, the more creative, then I think you've got a better shot at getting the audition. I think most of the TEDx coaching companies don't have somebody on staff who is particularly creative.
Yeah, exactly. And then what would you say too, Frank, are like your favorite resources for speakers? Because I know that you have a business outside of TEDx where you're doing a lot of speaking around the world. So what are your top 3 resources that speakers can use to elevate their speaking business?
Well, again, we talked about picking a set of ideal clients, and mine are dentists, veterinarians, physicians, and so forth. And I'm a big believer in marketing with a keynote, doing a one-to-many. So I don't market directly to veterinarians or doctors or dentists. I market to associations because they have an annual meeting by their bylaws. People pay to come, so they got money to pay you. They use outside speakers oftentimes. And my 6 occupation groups definitely have a need for what I have to say. So I simply market to associations because that engagement I did with a young man who had that horrible experience over the last year, that was a corporate client from an association keynote. Matter of fact, I booked 2 engagements from the association keynote, because what you're doing in an association keynote is you're keynoting to a target-rich audience of decision makers who can bring you in if they have the wherewithal and the finances to bring you in simply to their corporation. So I believe, rather than spray and pray to all these corporations, focus on associations. And what I do is, if I do the Associated Contractors International Illinois chapter, then I get a testimonial, video testimonial. I contact all the other state chapters, and rather than pitch them, what I say is, hey, let me write an article for your newsletter. So once you're inside the castle and you're talking back and forth about the newsletter, in passing, I say to them, I speak on this. Matter of fact, I spoke, in Illinois. Who is it here at at your association that books the speaker? So you can find out very quickly. All it is the decision rather than sending an email or a LinkedIn message or a cold call. So anyway, I guess in word, associations, I do believe that's where the money is in speaking.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And real quickly, this concept of perseverance. I spoke on it in the video when we started this meeting tonight, or the show tonight. But perseverance is something that you've definitely demonstrated. I mean, you set a record for consecutive nights. You've been out there. You've perfected your craft, and I'm assuming you've had many nights, even on that comedy stage, where people might have been booing you. So how do you kind of manage those expectations of yourself, your self-confidence, and then you layer on top of that your chronic suicidality? How do you manage perseverance in your attitude, in your mindset?
Well, it goes back to Dr. Sharon and authenticity. Being the person you came here to be, doing what you came here to do. And in 4th grade, I told my first joke at 9 years old. The students laughed. The teacher was so hysterical. She had to excuse herself and go to the teacher's lounge. And I knew from that moment on that my authentic self, I was going to be a stand-up comedian. I did the talent show 12th grade and won. And then my first night on stage at an open mic, halfway through my 5 minutes, I heard a voice inside my head say, "You're home." Mm-hmm. So I think it goes, if you are speaking authentically, help me, Dr. Sharon. Authentically, yes. And you are standing in your truth. Every now and then somebody will bust me because you're not a psychologist or psychiatrist. I mean, what qualifies you to speak on suicide prevention? And here's my stock answer: because I can tell you what the barrel of my gun tastes like. Mm-hmm. I can go to school and I can learn what you know. You will never know what I know. So it's that authenticity. It's that, it's people, I was on one of those clubhouse things. How do you get confident on stage? Hey, how about being authentic and standing in your truth? Trust me, you will have confidence on. It all goes back to Dr. Sharon's authenticity. I believe it's the heart and soul of a good speaking career, because people, even civilians who aren't speakers, can see through BS. They know, they can sense if you're not being authentic, if it's if you're just there for a paycheck.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, really, it's so important. And you've really found your calling and you're giving it in the world, Frank. And we thank you so much. And we thank you so much for being such an outstanding guest on our show. You've really moved us and our audience tonight. And we would love for you to tell our audience how they can get in touch with you should they want some coaching on how to get a TEDx talk.
I've got a website called Your TEDx.
I'm Dr. Sharon Lamm-Hartman.
Calling all speakers. Keynote is a stage changing the landscape of public speaking. The unscripted reality show is now casting. Scan the QR code at the end of the video to apply.
The #1 television show for inspired and experienced speakers is changing the landscape of public speaking. The unscripted reality TV series will bring together speakers from around the world. We are looking for impactful speakers who are ready to transform the world one person at a time. Keynote Live unscripted show will be filming this spring in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The television series will be streaming on Exposure Plus TV, accessible to 440 million households in 128 countries. Available on all smart television and mobile devices.
It's time to show off your skills. Be sure to tune in to Sunday Keynote live promotional streaming series at 7:00 p.m. Central Standard Time and 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to learn more about Keynote, unscripted reality TV series, and the coaches.
Exposure Plus TV is launching its third-generation app, loaded with over 50,000 movies to select from. An abundance of content for everyone from toddlers to adults. Exposure Plus TV offers its viewing audience a positive, educational, and entertaining experience. Be sure to tune in and watch the Business Credit Insider with the Davenports. They've been able to help business owners receive millions in credit just in time for the holidays. Subscribe today.
Range Rover, the most desirable ever created.
Wow.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. So Frank, tell us your website.
It's yourtedxcoach.com.
yourtedxcoach.com. All right. Well, fabulous. Well, we thank you so much for enlightening us today.
People ask me about TEDx because the people I work with are passionate about speaking, and they're passionate about sharing their stories and changing lives.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
All right. I think we're having some
technical difficulties. Yeah, we couldn't hear Karim, and Frank was breaking up a little as well. So
sometimes we'll let you guys go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll let you guys go and kind of wrap up with final comments.
Yeah. So I just hope that the audience tonight really, that you heard so many great tips from Frank as a successful speaker, a successful comedian. And I just love what he said, that you pick your lane, you pick your ideal clients, and you really specialize there. You find that niche, right? That you can be in, and you link it to your passion. That's really that authenticity that he was talking about, is what are you here to do? What are you here to give? What did you both hear in terms of Frank's talk tonight?
Yeah. Dr. Karim? Are you muted? Yeah. So what I heard, I mean, there's so many things just in the space that he speaks about, and just managing those emotions and managing the emotions of the audience. One of the things I really keyed in on was really was understanding that when you're speaking about those types of traumatic things, is to forewarn the audience, to prepare them, and that's such a critical aspect that I think is sometimes missed with speakers, is they'll launch into what is a very traumatic experience, but they didn't warn the audience, and you may trigger somebody in the audience that has a similar background. So that really caught my attention. But as you own your space, the other thing that really kind of stood out to me is this whole concept of just perseverance, of staying with it, of being in front of multiple audiences, of understanding your audience and understanding where there's a vacuum. So he's just not blasting his message out to the world. He's saying, okay, I know these associations, these types of workers have the highest rates of suicide. So he's going specifically to a very targeted audience with his message. So, yeah.
Exactly. So many amazing tips tonight for speakers out there, and we hope you apply those to your life, to your speaking career. And we started today with some tips from Gene on don't be afraid to fail and to learn from the failure. So you don't have to be 100% perfect. I mean, look at us tonight, right? We're having some technical difficulties and we're still bringing you a great show. So that's an example of that.
Yeah, that's another, kind of, I guess we call that a key drop, Sharon, is don't be that flea. We all put lids on ourselves, and subconsciously we create environments that are set up for us to be successful. There's nothing really wrong with that. But if you stay in that cocoon of success, you've put a lid on how great you can be.
Exactly. I love it, Gene. I really do. And we really want to thank our audience tonight for being with us and staying on this show and following us. And please remember to apply to be a guest on our show. You can be a guest like Frank King. You could apply to be a keynote spotlight, or you could apply to be a contestant on our reality TV show that's going to be coming up very soon. So please take your speaking careers to the next level. Take that risk and put yourself out there. We love to have you on the show, either the reality show or this show as a guest.
Same time, same place. See you next Sunday.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, y'all, this is G. Thanks so much for tuning into our show today. That means the world to me and to the Keynote Live team. So please keep tuning in and keep sharing this show with others. Keynote Live means the world to me and to all of us. Some years ago, one of my mentors said this to me. He said, Gene, do you want to do something significant, or do you want to be of significance in the lives of others? And that really hit home with me, because it really helped me to refocus my efforts on projects and activities that make a difference. And Keynote Live is a difference maker. To have an opportunity to reshape and rehumanize how we communicate with each other, how we collaborate, how we elevate each other, and even how we lead and influence those around us is an honor. Y'all, this ain't work, y'all. This is not work. This is my passion, and this is my purpose. So please keep tuning in, keep engaging with this platform, and keep sharing. We'll keep the content fresh. We'll bring on some great guests for you, and we'll give away some great gifts for you in the future.